Hello everyone and welcome back to Send It's Weather channel, where today we are looking at the latest CFS run, and we're actually going to do some logical and critical thinking, some northern blocking patterns and colder weather this winter. Let's take a serious Send It look. Because some of these videos have definitely not been serious enough, and I should be taking it seriously because I am Send It's Weather. Yeah, who do you think I am? These videos are always a bit of an extra to the regular content, as you've seen. But firstly, I wanted to start by saying a big thank you for all of your support. It's been incredible recently, and long may it continue. We've just reached 2,100 subscribers, and I greatly appreciate your support. But yeah, we're going to be looking at the CFS run today to see what it is showing. Seeing its unrealistic runs. Well, we're going to start with 10th of October, because why not, you know? And something you will notice is, again, higher pressure ridging out to our west in the Atlantic has been a common theme of these CFS runs, even the 10th of October. And something I will indicate is that if you do see blocking patterns throughout the autumn, it can lead to colder winter sometimes. It can be a repeating pattern that you can see continuously. And if you're enjoying today's video, by the way, just like that button, hit that like button, hit that hype button if you've got it available, and why not subscribe? Road to 2,500, there you go. But anyway, that clears, and the high pressure builds towards Greenland and mid-Atlantic ridge and goes woo. And we bring down a pretty cold northerly wind for the time of year. 13th of October, I'm already seeing these cold northerly winds. The -5 line into central England. Into the longer term, higher pressure ridges back to our south by the 19th of October, sitting just to our south, and turns things milder. Mild southwesterlies taking back over into the final days of October. But then when we're into November, when things start to get more interesting again, repeated patterns, higher pressure ridging in the Atlantic by the second week of November, areas of low pressure clearing to our east and bringing down more cold northerly winds. That might even bring the risk of snow with the -5 line through the country. These repeated northerly shots are a pattern, though, that this run shows, and I will let the cat out of the bag now. That is what it continuously shows, and you never know, might come off. Probably very unlikely. But you've got an area of low pressure in the North Sea, higher pressures out to our west, winds in from a northerly wind, mostly dry with that, but pretty cool or cold, with -5 line through the country, -5 ice to firm, 850 HPA levels, so at the ground level, probably mid-teens, maybe low teens, or high single figures. Higher pressure builds through the country, though, and does take over for the most part. Brief easterly wind there on the 25th of November with higher pressure to our north. Bringing in that easterly wind actually could bring in a few snow showers with some slightly colder air to our east, but that doesn't last too long, and then we're into December where things get slightly more interesting. Again, into the first week of December, we've got hints of higher pressure building to our north, northern blocking, trying to get going, but the Atlantic's a little bit too strong, and the high pressure ridges back through the country. So things are pretty cool there, maybe even cold, frosty nights at times. But then we revert the wind into more of a west-southwesterly wind again. Before higher pressure, here we go again. Higher pressure ridges out to our northwest again, bringing down that northerly wind. Brr, Britain to get plunged into the -5, -10 line, bathed in 5,000 centimetres, 700-mile wall of snow. Brace yourselves, everyone. Oh, I'm so silly. I do apologise. Yeah, high pressure ridges out to our west in the Atlantic, and Atlantic ridge, -5 line, floods through the country, and that definitely brings the risk of some snow showers if it came off. Definitely in the north and the east for the most part, with a pretty cold north-northeasterly wind. That ridge maintains itself to our west before it topples slightly, brings in a slight northwesterly tilt, but again, pretty cold, pretty harsh frosts possible there. Look at the bitterly cold air to our east. Look at that for Eastern Europe, Scandinavia, Nordic regions, Denmark, Netherlands, and look at us. Hello, high pressure. Let's sit right next to you, and let's keep it dry. As usual, we're on the periphery of that cold. Look at that. Just 500 miles away to our northeast over Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, bitterly cold air, and we're sat with the milder air. Look how close it gets. Look at that. Just very, very typical. Higher pressure sits over the top of the country. Higher pressure sits over the top of the country before slipping southwards again, and we're back into a westerly flow. Again, brief ridges out to our west into the start of January. What's Christmas look like, by the way? Oh, brilliant. Looks cold and frosty and pretty dry. But anyway, sorry about this. Silly. Send it, obviously. Higher pressure ridges out to our west again into the 3rd of January. Brings down more of a colder or cooler northwesterly wind again, briefly. Again, -5 line through the country. Plenty of visits from the -5 line this run. Ridges back to our south before ridging over top the country, and then we get the proper shot. And this is the reason why I'm showing you this run, because look. Whoopsie daisies, wrong button, butterfingers. We'll get back to that. Skip it, editor, skip it out. No. Anyway, so that higher pressure is sitting to our south, just over France, bringing in that southwesterly wind, pretty mild stat Jan. Before it ridges back over the top of the country, and then we see a little bit of a retrogression, as Gav likes to call it. Retrogression. I can't do it. I can't roll my R's like him. He's too good at that. But anyway, higher pressure ridges out in the Atlantic, mid-Atlantic ridge, and here comes the plunge of colder airs from the north, from the Arctic. Boom! Shakalaka! So you've got the complete contrast, the 0 degree line in the south and the -10 line flooding through central Britain. And bang, there it goes, here we go. This is the true brunt of the cold air on this run. Higher pressures begin to weaken out to our west, but we are bringing down a cold north-northeasterly wind. -10 line remaining solidly through the country. Temperatures not rising much above freezing in the daytime and falling well below in the night, I'd imagine, even in the southeast. Plenty of snow showers around, with that northerly wind probably in the north and the east. An area of low pressure tries to slide into that, but it's still pretty cold aloft, so possibly a few wintry potentials there. For higher pressure sits to our south, and again ridges out to our west briefly, bringing in a northerly wind. And again, look at this. Don't skip ahead, people, because look, high pressure ridges out just to our west again, brings down more of that northerly wind from the Arctic, and then the wind swaps around to the east. Watch this. Higher pressure goes, hello, let's build towards Scandinavia, does so successfully, and we bring in a pretty cold easterly wind, a trough of low pressure over France. That's going to be bringing in heavy snow to France and maybe even the south there, and the -10 line is through the country, bitterly cold air, flooding through the country. That easterly wind is maintained, higher pressure just to our north, and we keep bringing in really cold air from the east, and it just continues. It's just like that previous run. Higher pressure just maintained, and look at this. It sits to our north towards Scandinavia, and then it moves over, it saunters over to the west, and then here we go again. High pressure ridges just to the south of Greenland. Lower pressure is set over the southeast in the English Channel. And then we bring down a cold northeasterly wind. -5 line through the country once again. Ridging out to our west. Proper Greenland high. That's like an omega block, that. Proper blocked and cold pattern here. -10 line back through the country on the 10th of Feb. And we are bitterly cold, snow covered, snow laden, and pretty wintry at times. We do see the polar vortex, which is this big purple blob, sink southwards. Look at this, over Scandinavia, a big Arctic polar low, slides southwards, and boom, even colder air plunges southwards. The -15 line gracing the far north of Scotland there. Whew! High pressure ridges out to our west once again. More northerly winds take over again. And look at this. Absolutely ridiculous. -15 line. Back into the north. -10 through the country. Plenty of snow. Copious amounts of snow. Completely unrealistic. And again, look at this again. Again, into the third week of Feb. Higher pressure goes, hello, let's make an appearance. And goes, woo, let's go to Greenland again. And boom. An Arctic low sliding into Scandinavia, slides into the DMs of Scandinavia, and brings back down a cold northerly wind once again. -10 line through the country. Then that area of low pressure, that polar low, slips through the country, bringing copious amounts of snow wrapped into that cold air, bringing up a southwesterly wind on the back edge of that, and it's the -5 line through the country remains. So pretty ridiculous. Eventually it turns milder, but, you know, as you'd expect, that is a pretty ridiculous run again. Hints of this keep coming and coming, but that higher pressure to our west, really, northwest, just keeps on coming. That is a pretty intense run, plenty of snow, really cold air, actually colder than that last run I showed you before. But just a prolonged cold spell again from the CFS run, just going absolutely mental. What is the chances of this blocking then? That is what this video is about. What are the chances of something like this happening this year? Let's just put it at a big fat Again, I'm going for my prediction of a cold December. Of course, these charts are a long way off and experimental and just for fun, so don't take them too seriously. These are just alongside the regular forecast. But if this came off, honestly, the north would be stuck in a snow bomb. Actually, the reports would be true if this came off. We've got polar lows sliding southwards, easterly winds constantly, northerly winds, and we've got areas of low pressure sliding in to the DMs of the south. So plenty going on is what I would say about that. The likelihood is probably not going to happen, but you never know. You can't rule out it's got to happen at some point. Prolonged winter. There could even be a tripole this year, and that winter led to 2009-10. But obviously the chances are still against the UK. Probably go cold into Eastern Europe, but you never know. It has to come at some point. Thank you all very much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Being a bit silly, I do apologise if there was any offensive jokes. I don't think I was. I think I kept myself safe there. I didn't say anything too bad. Thank you all for watching. Keep the support going. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye, everyone.